Alright guys, I just want to welcome you here back to Tyler's YouTube channel, and today I'm going to be doing some fragging. So right here is just a prime example of everything you'll need to be fragging. You'll need some coral glue. I like to buy the Coral Flakes big bottles, and I like to use the Ecotech glue as well. It's just a little bit thicker. Sometimes I feel like the Coral Flakes is a little bit more runny. And there's a couple different ways of fragging. For what I'm going to be fragging today are Zoas, and they're going to be softy. So they're not going to have a skeleton structure in them. So that will give me the ability to cut them with just a really sharp razor. And this is right here, it's just simply a exacto knife kit, as you can see there. And you can get this at like Walmart or like Michael's, usually like in the crafting section. You can get this blade set, and it's really nice because there's just, as you can see, a whole assortment of blades, and it's really nice for fragging. And then of course you need to get either an assortment of plugs. I just got out a bunch that I already had to kind of show you guys. This is a handmade one that's just basically recreating rock rubble, so that way you have a flat surface to glue it down on, and then it looks like rubble once it starts to get algae growing on it. There's regular plugs that are just to sit on a frag rack. This one has a dip in it. Then there's of course rock rubble, which are just pieces of live rock you can use to glue down onto. There's a square one that's flat, a circular one that's made out of, I believe, recycled sand, a circular one. And then these ones are really cool. I've been trying out these ones for Ecotech. These are the new Ecotech plugs that they designed. Instead of having a nub like this one where it sits down in the frag rack, this one actually sits on the crevices of the frag rack, and it's really cool. Instead of sitting down like a single plug. And you can kind of rearrange them in a nicer order. But yeah, it's just a little bit different. It does the same thing. So those are the prime things you're going to need, and also a thing of your tank water. So that way you can put the corals in there in between fragging to keep them wet. I like to have this sometimes. These are just some steel grabbers I've had for a long time. And of course gloves. And the gloves are going to keep, if you have any cuts on your hands or anything like that, since they are Zoas, they do release a toxin from them as they're getting stressed and they close up. They release a toxin. You don't want that being rubbed into a cut. It'll make you pretty sick. So there's my gloves. So what I'm going to do now is going to go ahead and put my hand in this glove, and I'm going to go ahead and get the first coral that I'm going to frag. Alright, so start off with these guys. Snare off here. Okay. So the thing with fragging is, as you can see, is there's all these polyps that get closed up and they get mad. Now, what you want to do is you want to plot where you're going to cut. And you kind of have to look for certain polyps that are either possibly stretching for another rock, and those are the almost like the low-hanging fruit. You're going to be able to get those the easiest. And what you want to do is you want to take the knife and you want to try to get as close to the rock as possible when you're scraping underneath it. Like, you know, when you're peeling an orange, you don't want the fruit to tear off on the peel. So you're trying just to peel off the fruit just by getting the peel. So you want to do the same thing. You want to try to get as close to the rock when it comes to cutting these as possible, so you're not cutting into the actual zoa and damaging it where it's going to open and where the polyp is. So you want to try to get underneath it. Not necessarily cutting into the rock, but almost as if you're just cutting along the rock, not cutting through the middle of the zoa, because if you cut straight through the middle of it, you're going to kill it. So for me, I like to use the smaller blade personally. Then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, whenever it comes to fragging, you kind of want to plan out where you're going to cut. That's just going to be the easiest way to do any of this. So let's go ahead and see what I can get out of these. And there are other ways using a saw, and you can zip it off, but in the long run, you're eventually going to run out of rock. So I prefer doing it this way. So there's one. We have one little Zoa off so far. There it is. What I'm going to do, I'm going to set this Zoa down. I'm going to get a plug ready, take some super glue, and what I do is I put a little bit of super glue onto the plug. There we go. Just a little glob like that. And then make sure you have the opening part of the polyp facing up. Obviously, you don't want to set that down into the glue. And there you go, there's one polyp frag. And then what you do is you set it down in the water right here for the glue to set. And then I'll redunk this guy to kind of rinse them off, and then re-get them wet again so that way they stay nice and moist. Alright, so this person wants me to give them a 3 polyp frag. So I'm going to plot out my next one. I just cut from right here, so I'm going to go ahead and cut the next one next to it as well. Because basically I already opened up an area for me to frag now. So it's not going to be as tight. And see, with this one in particular, has a gap. So basically you see how on this side there's a gap that goes all the way around here. This person basically, they had a plug and they crafted, I believe, out of, you know, a putty, epoxy possibly, made a circular for the plug to sit into, almost like if you buy a ring for your girl and you have the proposal ring with just the diamond on it and you get a jacket that goes around it. This is almost like a jacket for the Zoas. So they sink down in there, as you can see, on the bottom how it sinks down into that hole. So there's a little bit of a gap right here, obviously. So the Zoas that are stretching across, they grow out a little bit longer so they can try to reach the other side and then grow other corals onto it. So I'm cutting the ones that are reaching because they're sticking out a little bit further and it allows me to get underneath it. Because some of them are just really close against the rock and I feel like I'm going to hurt them and just not get enough of the actual stem. So like, you know, when you're cutting a flower, you want to get the stem and you don't want to cut the actual flower's head. And you want to do the same thing with Zoas. You want to just cut the stem off. So another glob of glue. And then you get the Zoa and plop them down on there. There we go, we have a 2 polyp frag so far. Put it back in the water. Let that sit for a minute. I'm going to redunk this guy. Alright. These, what I'm fragging right here, are purple hornets. I have a colony of like 1, 2. There's about 40 polyps on here. When I got this colony, it was about 15, so it's grown quite a bit since I've got it. So I cut off those 2 that from right there. One reason I also like the exacto knives is because you can replace the blades. And that's pretty big in this. You want to be able to replace the blades because you get salt water on them, they tend to rust pretty quickly. And when it comes, sometimes you get these little strands and see how it's just dangling? You need a really sharp knife in order to cut that. finally got him. Alright, so we're going to put that guy on one of these. I personally like to dip mine even if they're dry, so that way the glue, this glue is underwater glue, so it sets when it touches water. So that way when I put the glue on the bottom, it sets. Then there's just the glue that's on top. Alright, so this guy's done. I'm gonna give him a little dunkarino. Alright. There we go, he's done. I'm going to go ahead and put him back in the tank. And that right there, ladies and gentlemen, is Fragging 101. So, as you can see, I have both the frags sitting right here. If you see a little bit of like a stream coming up, that's just the bubbles from the frag because it hasn't been in water yet. So all the little porously holes are just releasing air. And then obviously be careful with these, they're very sharp. And there you have it. I have one on a regular plug and one on these little Ecotech plugs. So thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time. Remember to hit the subscribe button and like. And if you guys have any videos you want me to make to show you guys something else, feel free to post in there. Thanks, guys.